More questions emerge about who gave the order that led to the murder of CPP former Northern Regional Chairman Issa Mobila, as 2 soldiers are convicted for their roles in his death.
There was an order, a superior officer who ordered them to beat him up. And once they are military men and believed that they ought to have obeyed their superior's orders, then their offense of murder is reduced automatically to manslaughter.
That means that the individual who ordered might be the person that we should be looking for now.
Yes.
We will be live at the family house in Tamale and hear from the lawyer of one of the convicted soldiers.
Top Story with Evans Mensah.
Top Story is brought to you by Bond Financial Services, your success, our passion. Belaka Mineral Water, the new generation mineral water. It's also brought to you by Blue Rose Limited. Also brought to you by Lifebuoy, obviously 100% better gem protection. Guilty. That is a verdict of 7-member jury that presided over an intensely controversial murder trial that divided political opinion, pitching the NDC against the MPP while enraging the CPP. The Convention People's Party's Northern Regional Chairman was murdered in cold blood in the heat of the 2004 general election. 3 soldiers were charged with his murder, and after almost a decade, the court today delivered its verdict, sentencing 2 of the soldiers to a combined jail term of 30 years for manslaughter. The soldiers were sentenced on a lesser charge of manslaughter because the jury believed they had simply acted on orders from above. So, who gave that order leading to the murder of Issa Mobila? Tadio Sori, lawyer for one of the convicted soldiers, wonders.
The jurors took the view that based on the facts and the evidence that was adduced before the court, they found the first and the third accused persons guilty rather of manslaughter and not of murder. There was an order, a superior officer who ordered them to beat him up. And once they are military men and believed that they ought to have obeyed their superior's orders, then their offense of murder is reduced automatically to manslaughter.
Because they were soldiers obviously act on orders.
Yes.
That means that the individual who ordered might be the person that we should be looking for now.
Yes.
Tadesori represented Corporal Yawapia. The other soldier, Private Sir Goka, was convicted and sentenced in absentia because he is still on the run. He received 20 years. The third soldier, Private Eric Mojaka, had earlier been freed on the submission of no case. We can now go live to the family house of the murdered Issa Mobila and speak to our correspondent there, Hashmin Mohammed. Thank you, Hashmin. So how are the family members receiving this news?
Well, the news has not yet gotten to the family of the late former CPP Northern Regional Chairman, Alhaji Issa Mobila. But our presence this evening at the family house has just announced the verdict of the court today. Family members, some of the family members are yet to return from their workplace after going through after leaving the family this morning to their workplace. But I'm right here with the first son of the late former CPP Northern Regional Chairman, the late Issa Mobila's first son, Shamsuddin Issa. I'll be talking to him to find out how did they receive the news that at long last justice has been granted to their father. Well, thank you very much for your time this evening. So how did you receive the news that at long last justice has been granted to your father?
Actually, thank you very much. We all heard it from the media that for all that long justice has been given, and we, however, give thanks to the government for giving justice as far as the case of my father, Issa Mobila, is concerned. Though all that long, we all knew that justice will surely prevail because I, in particular, have a belief that if justice happens to fail in this world, but not on the day of judgment, so justice shall surely and will always prevail. So, however, once again, give thanks to His Excellency, the President, for giving justice to the case of our late father, Isa Mobila.
So you're definitely hearing the brother to Isa Mobila there. Today the verdict was delivered, and that's a view from the family house in Tamale. Also joining me on the line right now is Tadio Sori, lawyer for one of the convicted soldiers. Thank you, sir, for your time. You told us earlier that your client was today convicted on a lesser charge of manslaughter, not murder, because the court was convinced that he and the others were simply acting on orders, correct?
Yes, but Ivan, let me make one thing clear. The evidence that they were acting on superior orders was actually introduced by the prosecution itself.
So the prosecution actually introduced that?
Yes, because it is contained in a report that was compiled after some investigations were conducted into the circumstances leading to the death of Isa Mobila. So it is evidence that was introduced even by the prosecution itself. So it is in that report that it was clear that the accused persons acted upon some instructions. So that is the point that I want to establish.
And the jury believed that particular testimony. I'm sure it's something that you also played up.
Oh, absolutely, because the jury believed it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have come reached the verdict of guilty of manslaughter. Indeed, the jury deliberated the first time and came back to the courtroom and asked for clarifications from the judge for purposes of determining whether they would reach the verdict of guilty of murder or guilty of manslaughter. But they went and deliberated upon it and came back with a verdict of guilty of manslaughter.
That leaves one central question unanswered. Did it emerge then on whose orders they were acting?
Well, the report is a very comprehensive report. It took evidence from a lot of people, including some of those who came and gave evidence in court. So all that can be ascertained from the report. The report is a very comprehensive report.
So I wonder though whether, with that unanswered question still lingering, whether this is the end of this trial.
Well, as for that one, it doesn't lie in my province. My instructions were limited to defending the first and second accused persons. The second accused person was acquitted upon the submission of no case. It is the first accused person who is now found guilty of manslaughter. Whether the prosecution is pursuing it beyond this or not is another matter. I don't know what they intend to do. But it was the evidence. The evidence was with them. They tendered it in evidence, and all that all the findings that were made by the committee that investigated the matter are in it.
So apart from the jury believing this very essential element captured in the prosecution's own report that indeed they were acting on all this, what other reasons did the court give for today's verdict?
No, the court didn't have to give reasons because it was a jury trial. The jury only needed to reach the conclusion based upon the facts, the evidence, the addresses of the two lawyers, that is the defense and then the prosecution, as well as the summing up of the court. It didn't have to give any reasons at all. The only time that the court spoke was when it sentenced the first accused person and then the third accused person. The court took into account the circumstances under which, in terms of the report, the offense occurred and how it occurred before passing sentence.
My understanding is that the other convicted soldier, Private Seth, what's his name again? Private Seth Goka, is still on the run?
Yes, he didn't take part in the trial at all. He didn't take part in the trial at all, and that is what is significant because his conviction on the charge of manslaughter instead of murder is still based on the evidence that was led at the trial. That is why the jury reached the verdict of manslaughter also for him, rather than murder, although he didn't take part in the trial at all. Indeed, he was facing two charges from the beginning. Upon the submission of no case, the charge of conspiracy to murder was dropped against him at that stage. It is at this time, at the conclusion of the case, that he's now been found guilty of manslaughter instead of murder.
So he didn't have a representation in court throughout the process, but he was sentenced and convicted in absentia?
Absolutely. He didn't have any representation at all.
Okay, we're able to speak to the CPP national chairman, Samuel Nkrumah, because they are key stakeholders in this case. But Mr. Sorry, just before you go, I wonder though, now that we finally, you recall how this issue became such a heated political potato, for your client, how is he taking this news?
Well, he at the moment, we haven't spoken about it, but he took it as a man, and we are going to reflect on the sentence that was passed, as well as the conviction, and then we will advise ourselves accordingly.
Let me ask then, you welcome this conviction, or you think that is something that you want to appeal against?
No defense lawyer welcomes a conviction and a sentence. You would usually prefer an acquittal outright. So at the moment, I'm just looking at reflecting on the whole trial again and the verdict of the jury. The sentence, and then we'll advise ourselves.
I asked that because if he had gone in for murder, definitely that would have been a pretty stiffer punishment for him than manslaughter.
That is true. So we should be. We are happy that at least he had his offense reduced from that of murder to manslaughter. But that doesn't mean that we should take it like that. If we are convinced that he could have gotten off with an outright acquittal.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for your time. That's Tadio Sori. He is a lawyer for one of the convicted soldiers, Corporal Yawapia. I understand we've just been joined by the CPP national chairman. They had led the struggle for justice as far as this particular case is concerned, because after all, it was their former Northern Regional chairman who was killed. Today, they have justice. Thank you very much, Madam Samia Nkrumah. You must be pleased with today's verdict, correct?
Well, we are satisfied that a guilty charge has been handed down, of course. Even though this is justice delayed, this case has taken many years. But at the same time, even though we are happy a guilty charge has been handed down, we believe the sentence is low because the men who committed the crime acted in a premeditated way, in the sense that you don't brutally torture someone to death by accident. Now, we are grateful that at least there's been a guilty charge, but we feel that the people behind the officers' actions, the people who gave instructions to the officers, must also be charged. Chairman Issa Mobila was not only the CPP Northern Regional Chairman, but he was also a philanthropist, a man who gave to his community, a businessman, a man of some stature. And at this moment, once again, our heart goes to the family, the immediate family and the extended family. And we are going to put our heads together to see how we can immortalize his memory and his name.
I know the CPP led that campaign for justice. What you're saying right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you believe the sentence and the conviction, the sentencing were lenient to those two soldiers, and you also want the higher superiors who gave the order to also be brought to book, correct?
Yes, indeed, yes. Yes, that is correct. You understood me perfectly.
And I want to then...
We believe it is not in the culture of our military or police to torture people when arrested. So they were instigated to do so. And whoever was behind that must also be tried.
We just heard from the lawyer of one of those convicted soldiers today. Just tell us that as far as pursuing the other angles you're asking for, say those who gave the orders, is up to the prosecution, that is the state, to decide whether to go after him or not, or them or not. Is this something that the CPP is willing to push like you've done in the history of this trial, demanding for justice for Issa Mobila and his family?
Yes, I believe we must look into it. And we will liaise with the family and see what can be done.
Okay.
Needless to say, their views must be taken into account. We are speaking now we are speaking because Mobila was one of our own, and he rendered his service to us but he rendered service to the whole community. And I think the family too will have a say. We want to assure them that we are willing to cooperate and to do whatever it takes to stand by them and to make sure that full justice is done.
Thank you very much, Madam Samia Nkrumah. She is the national chairman of the CPP. Obviously, that was their former national chairman, former regional chairman in the Northern Region, who was murdered and in cold blood. Today, 2 soldiers have been convicted of manslaughter. I want to stay with us for the other additional details. We'll be trying to speak to some more members of the family, trying to understand whether they agree with the CPP's push to get the other individuals they believe were also involved, because we understand that the 2 soldiers were convicted on a lesser charge of manslaughter because the jury believed they acted on orders captured in a report, we are just told, by the prosecution. You want to stay with us in 15 minutes on Newsnight on radio for those other details. My name is Evans Mensah. Top stories brought to you by Bond Financial Services, also brought to you by Belacqua Mineral Water, Blue Rose Limited, and also by Lifebuoy. My name is Evans Mensah.